Brooke, you're
Mike,
you're on Making Chips with me.
I know it's crazy. Last time I was here, I was on the other side of this.
Well, this will be fun. You're gonna host with me today. So instead of getting asked the questions, you can ask the questions.
Yeah, well, I actually have a joke for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I
I
think
was
you'll like
missing
it.
Nick. So,
I know. I figured I'm wearing the Hennig shirt and everything, so I
oh,
felt
there
like
you
I
go.
had to step into the role. What do you call a factory that makes okay products?
I already know this one. It's a
Okay,
satisfactory.
right? I thought it was hilarious.
Well, hey, we've got a great guest today, John. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell a little bit about the company and so forth?
Yeah, of course. My name's John. I run marketing at a company called Navu, and we are an AI chatbot built for industrial and manufacturing websites that handles marketing questions, support questions, technical questions, really anything people need to know when they come to your website that can be challenging to find. Our job is to make that easier to surface and provide reliable answers consistently, no matter what they're looking for.
Yeah, so we met at the Industrial Marketing Summit back in what, March of this year or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, everybody was singing your guys' praises, and I kinda checked it out while I was there, and I know the majority of your customers are in that industrial space, but, we reached out about even just kind of like with our Making Chips site
hmm
and kinda tested that out of, like, can you take this catalog of, gosh, however many episodes we're at now, 500 something Making Chips and then hundreds of all the other shows and, help people find content related to what they're looking for, and we dug into that and it was great. And then we've since made a run with your product on my Hill website. Yes, I mean, I say from like my experience, having the ability for people to come to your site and just ask the questions and get back answers is really impactful. I mean, like I know when you go to the Making Chip site, you can say what episodes have been about culture, or something like that, which is maybe every episode, but and you get back a great list. And then on the Hill site, where you could ask, like, "Do you guys make something this size? I mean, can you turn an OD up to 22 inches or whatever?" Very, very helpful.
Thank you. I come from a marketing background myself, and for a long time, for my entire career before this, I've always wished I could understand what people were actually doing or thinking on the website. So
Yeah.
often we spend so much time being, here's all this great content, and here's all of these very structured. Think about where the links go, and I think about what the search terms are, and how they're getting to my site, and then they click on this beautiful landing page, and they immediately click on the homepage, and then they bounce or they do something else. I'm like, "What were you looking for? What is it that I wasn't delivering here?" And so now it honestly, it's kinda revelatory to be able to say, "Oh, you were looking for this specific thing." Whether or not we have it on the site or whether or not it was a good question, at least now I know. It's just an entirely new world out there for what a website can be doing and what you can be learning about your visitors.
How'd you guys decide to, like, drill in on the industrial manufacturing space?
Well, we didn't really originally
Okay.
decide. We came in a little background on us. So this group of folks, we had a company called Slickstream that did engagement rate optimization. So uh, content recommendations, favoriting, site search, all the things for an ad revenue monetized site. So something that was making money off of clicks and engagement and time on site. So we were helping people keep on time on site. Big space for us there was actually cooking blogs of all things because they
Hmm.
have sort of a loyal audience that's coming back, saving things, engaging, and they make all their money through ads. We sold that during the pandemic, and as part of the terms of the sale, we're able to keep the team together and build a non-competitive one in the B2B space. And so we're building out this product around personalization, and then it actually moves into this sort of conversational AI mode. And it looks really good, and we don't really have a specific niche at this point. We're looking at professional services as a good fit. There's a lot of smaller, like, law firms could be a good fit. That's, I guess, professional services as well. But what we found was the easiest ones for us to talk to and the people that got our story the most were the ones with the most complex user education burdens. So the more the website is expected to do, the harder it is for people to find what they're looking for and the more willing they are to be open to a solution that helps surface that content and leverage all that content and good information that they have to help people find what they're looking for, to make those successful sessions no matter what. And what we found is that industrial manufacturing is just it's just the obvious space for this. So many white papers, PDFs, case studies. Nobody buys a bridge on a whim, right? They have to come in and learn a ton of stuff before they make that decision. They're probably far along in the process. And so it's just this perfect fit of the material itself. And what we've also found, and this may be true for your listeners, I can't say for sure, but a lot of them in this space are relatively stretched thin, a little under-resourced maybe on the marketing side specifically, and don't have the time to do some big bespoke custom enterprise integration on the site, try to bootstrap this themselves. They want something that kind of works out of the box and doesn't require a PhD to learn. And so that really just aligned with what we were doing. We started sponsoring a couple of events in the industrial manufacturing space, and it just resonated. And we just found we liked the space. It worked well with us. Our product suited its needs, and we just kind of followed our nose on that front, and that led us to IMS, and that led us to making chips.
You can't spell high end without DN. If you're serious about taking your shop to the next level, it might be time to stop thinking in terms of good enough and start thinking in terms of capability, flexibility, and my favorite, automation. DN Solutions is helping manufacturers move into true high-end machining with their SMX multitasking series, the DVF 5-axis machines, and advanced automation solutions designed for shops that want to run smarter, faster, and more competitively. The SMX platform gives you the ability to combine multiple operations into one setup, reducing handling, improving accuracy, and helping you get complex parts out the door faster. Their DVF 5-axis lineup delivers the precision, rigidity, and confidence manufacturers need for today's demanding aerospace, medical, and high performance applications. And when you pair those machines with automation, you're not just buying equipment, you're building a more scalable business. High end parts, high end capability, high end thinking. Because you can't spell high end without DN. Learn more at dnsolutions.com.
I kind of want to jump back a bit. When you first were introducing yourself and the company, you were talking about how you can kind of see who visits your page, where they're from, kind of what they're looking for. Could you dig a little bit more into that?
Yeah, so the way we operate is we're a line of code that goes on the website that says connect to Navu. That's the whole impact on the website is that we're a software as a service, a SaaS. So we connect via a line of JavaScript like that, and that allows us to see user behavior. And we're not, spying and trying to figure out, Joe Smith from Oklahoma was browsing for X seconds, unless he provides that information. So we operate well within the confines of your consent management platform, which is the cookie thing that you're using to give permission to collect data. So we collect data like Google Analytics would, but we collect not only the questions that that person asked, but also they came to this page on this search campaign, spent 15 seconds here, clicked around to this page. On this page, they asked the question, "What's the tolerance of this fastener?" Or this specific question on this page. They moved on to another page. They came back 2 weeks later, at which point they entered an email address. And then when they enter an email address, we now link it to the profile that you have within um, your CRM. So the contact customer management system. So you can see within HubSpot or Salesforce or any of the CRMs you might be using. So Joe Smith came in and asked these questions. You don't actually have to come to our platform to see it. We push that information into the contact record itself. So your sales team has access to it. So we're not using third-party information. We're not, trying to figure out your Google search history or anything like that. It's just the stuff you did on the website is really relevant. And especially if you had searches or you asked questions, it tells a story that's valuable whether or not you convert. It's valuable for the ones that do convert because it helps your sales team in that process, and it's valuable for the ones that don't because it helps you understand where they bounced, what they were looking for that they didn't find, or how far they got before they left your website.
Do you have I've seen some of those stats, like, on our own site or other sites. I mean, where they show up to your homepage for 8 seconds and then they're gone. With something like with this type of solution in place, do you know stats of, like, kinda what typically people hit, and then with this type of functionality, how long they stick around?
Yeah, there's a few different ways to look at that. What we find is the utilization of it increases based on two things. The amount of time that somebody spends on the site becomes they're more likely to end up engaging with something like the sidebar. That could theoretically be bidirectional, that the sidebar is making people stay longer, but we don't want to overpromise and jump that gun. You see a chatbot that's not instantly going to make you stay longer unless you're engaging with it. But we find it's about 37% of users that eventually convert. So anybody that eventually converts in a site with it has used the sidebar is what we call our chat solution. It's sort of slightly different than a floating chatbot in the sense that it's docked on the side. And for anybody listening, Making Chips fans, you can go to the Making Chips website and just
Yeah.
see it there, ask them some questions. But about 37% of users that eventually convert will use the sidebar in the process. And it's about, if somebody uses the sidebar, they're about 4.5 times more likely. I think it's 4.7 times more likely to eventually convert.
Oh, wow.
Again, this isn't us. We're not increasing conversions 4.5. That's certainly not the claim. It's rather that the people that this is engaging are your best leads. The people that are coming to the site that are the most active, the most interested, are the ones that this is benefiting. And that's actually, I think, that's something I want to talk about at some point, is just sort of the shift of who is coming to your website in 2026, because it's really different than how it used to be.
Well, talk about it now. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Well, it's so about 80% of Google searches that have an AI summary, the AI summaries at the top now that
Mhm.
answer your question. About 80%, I've seen upwards of 90% of searches that have that summary end without a single click. And so when people are asking more generic questions about your website in the SEO world, well, they would go to your website to get that information. But now they're getting that information before they get there. They're getting it summarized and they don't need to come. And what that's doing is basically taking the bottom out of all your website traffic. It's lowering website traffic across the board. This is attested to at enterprise level, at small business level. Web traffic is going down, but it's not that conversions are going down. It's not that your leads are going down. It's just that the top of the funnel, the folks that are the least likely to be ready to buy, the least likely to engage, well, they no longer come to your site at all. And so the folks that are coming are in fact the higher value visitors that you want. The folks that are they're ready to make a purchase, or at least ready to learn whether you're the solution for them. And so your whole job on the website now is, well, deliver the thing that this person is looking for. And it can be a little tempting to make everybody that used to think I am for literally everybody that comes to the site, and everybody that comes to the site, I want to talk to sales.
Mm.
But of course,
Right.
you're not going to be for everybody. And what you're doing when you're doing that is you're making it sales' responsibility to weed out all the folks that were never gonna become customers. You're making it their responsibility to take on all of these folks that haven't even educated yet, that don't even know if this is the business for them. So it's putting a lot onto their plate, or the marketing folks' plate potentially, however you structured your business and who they're talking to. When you have sort of a traditional "I am for everybody," you're creating more work for everybody on your team.
Okay, so you're finding that there's higher value people coming to the site. How do you make sure on the owner operator side that your part of it has the information that it needs to be able to engage these people properly?
It's a great question. There's a lot to it. You probably have a fair amount of content on your site as it is. And in the old model of SEO, it's a bit of a black box, but you're basically creating content for every possible question somebody might ask Google, right? So that when you turn up, in that case, somebody will click on your website and go and read the content that's specific to them. And so you might have a lot of old content because it doesn't do any harm there, right? It's just sitting there, nobody's really reading it, but it's not doing any damage. But
Yeah.
that's wrong now. It wasn't wrong before, but now it's actually doing more harm than good, because the AI doesn't operate the same way that SEO did. And LLMs, when people are using ChatGPT or Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, any of them, they actually are basically reading your whole site concurrently, all at the same time, and evaluating what answer they would give to that question. And if you have two pieces of content, maybe one from 10 years ago and one from now, and they say different things, well, now you're actually gonna be punished for that, because you're no longer as reputable of an answer source for that LLM. And so by now maintaining the old content that wasn't doing any harm before, you're increasing the risk of having conflicting information on your site, which the LLMs don't like. When you have conflicting information on your site, you're less likely to be cited. And so content that might have been written for a human, like here's a general surface level rundown of everything you need to know about stormwater filtration systems, right? Here's everything you need to know, and it's you know surface level stuff. It's not particularly in depth, and you have more in depth content elsewhere. You're running the risk of saying conflicting things, and the AI doesn't care it doesn't read the same way that a human does, where it's saying, okay, great, this is a surface level on a bunch of things. Thank you. It wants to know in-depth answers to answer the specific questions that are being asked. So a regular user might be asking something around, and I'm going to pick stormwater filtration. This is a real case that I like to bring up, but they might be asking, I'm looking for a stormwater filtration system that can be installed in central Ohio. What are some of the options for me? And they might ask that to ChatGPT. And if your site has information from 20 years ago saying our regions include the Northeast and the Southeast, but we don't operate in the Midwest. But then 10 years later, of course, you do now operate in Ohio. It's going to see the stuff that says I operate in Ohio now, but it's also going to see the stuff that says I don't. And it's not going to recommend you in that moment. And then nobody's getting to your site from the LLMs. And so I think that's a really important distinction is you want to create all the content on your site, but you want to have not too much. It really should be less content that's more focused, technical, in-depth stuff. That's the best kind of content that you can have, but you need to make sure that you're also ruthlessly auditing, pruning the things that are outdated or no longer serve a lot of value. Because if it's not adding value, it's probably a net negative overall, rather than that old neutral. It doesn't hurt.
And okay, so you were talking about that in relation to the chat GPTs or whatever. How's that compare to your solution?
Yeah,
Same filters and same logic behind that search?
yeah, of course. So what we do is we're built on OpenAI and Gemini. We run both concurrently on questions so that we don't have downtime when one of them is down. But we answer the questions in much the same way. We just have a bunch of built-in constraints and guidance to suit a B2B or a manufacturing style of website, so we don't go off the rails.
Trained to my company specifically.
That's exactly right. So we don't answer questions about the broader internet. We don't answer questions about your competitors or Taylor Swift or your math homework. It's just anything that's on your website or the stuff that you upload manually that you don't want on your website. That's the kind of stuff that we train on. But what's interesting is we're reading the same information that the broader LLMs are. That when somebody asks Claude or somebody asks ChatGPT about your industry or your business, we see the same kind of stuff that they do. So if you add an AI chatbot, either us or an AI search tool, Hawk Search, I think is one that a lot of folks might be familiar with in this space, you get a lot of information about how the AI sees you that you now have access to through your data. Whereas the LLMs, the broader ones, are total black box. You have no idea who's searching for you in ChatGPT right now or what ChatGPT is saying about you until you use a tool like this, at which point we can kind of act as a canary in the coal mine for problems that you might be having. If somebody asks a question on your site and doesn't get a satisfactory answer, well, that means they're also not going to be getting a satisfactory answer on the broader internet. Example for us, I run our marketing. I built our website. I thought I knew everything on it and had a good sense of, how we'd be answering questions. There's not that much content. And I saw this was a few months ago. I saw somebody asked a question, and my first thing every day that I do is I check the questions people asked on the site. It's my favorite activity, honestly, in my day to day. It's endlessly fascinating. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are ridiculous. But some of them are good questions with bad answers. And that's definitely the thing we want to iron out, both for the chatbot experience, but also for the broader internet experience, for our SEO and our AEO, GEO, whatever they call it, optimizing for the LLMs. We call it AEO mostly, but it could be any. And so somebody asked on our site, I see that you're for B2B and I see that you're for B2C. Are you for B2B2C? So, well, of course we're for, like, so many of our customers are businesses to businesses that sell to the end consumers. So many of our customers are B2B2C. Of course it's going to answer that. And it said, I don't see any information on the website to answer that question. That's how it answered it. And it was like, well, I'm glad it didn't, lie or say no, but that's not satisfactory. That's not correct. And it's
Right.
not a good sign for what I've done on the website that it's not answering. So that gave me content guidance on what I needed to be creating next, how I needed to be adapting our content to fit what was a totally reasonable user question. We aren't sort of trying to sell our product as being for agentic engine optimization or generative, to optimize for the LLMs. But what you're doing to make an AI chatbot work on your site is the same stuff you would do to optimize it to be read and engaged with on the broader internet as well.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating to think about because I've been through however many website builds in 30 years, right? And I think in this industry, I think has done this a whole lot, and we think we know what our existing and or potential customers want to hear, right? And, you know, 15 years ago, a lot of like machine shop websites would just have a list of equipment. I have these lathes, these mills, this CMM. I work with these four material types, and I have my ISO certification. And they all look the same, right? Like every shop site looked the same. And I I remember when I was looking at redoing hills, talking to a few of our customers, and I'm like, what are you looking for?" And it wasn't that stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they may eventually want to know those things,
Yep.
but they really wanted to understand us first and, like, how we do business more so than we have this machine, this model number, that type of thing. They wanted to know, like, what's the biggest stuff we can do, the smallest stuff we can do. Didn't care about what brand of lathe we had, just how big can we turn, that type of thing.
Yeah, well, and I think you're the experts, right? It's important to remember that some of your customers have a lot of expertise in this space, but a lot of them are gonna be leveraging your expertise. They're gonna be relying on you to tell them what the best fit for them is,
Right.
and they may not be ready to ask you that. They may not trust you far enough along the way to talk to somebody from sales or send you an email right off the bat when they're still evaluating whether or not you're even a fit for them.
Yeah.
So, it's important to leverage your own expertise in that way and make it clear on the site, make it visible. All that stuff that that your customer might need to know before they wanna, move forward and become a client or even just reach out to you. That's the kind of stuff that you really should have on the website is that deep expertise, that lets them determine whether or not you're a fit.
Yeah. I do wanna clarify for everybody, you kinda mentioned it earlier, but the little chat bots that have been around for a long time, that's not this.
No,
Uh, and those
no.
things annoy me for the most part, right? When it just keeps popping up and asking you every 30 seconds, "Can I help you?" And then you go to a new page and it asks again. Um,
The answer is no, it really can't help you. I mean, you can
right.
you can try, but often those would be less helpful than not having anything at all.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because I would not want one of those, and I really do like your solution.
Yeah, no, well, so this is something I talk about a lot is I hated chatbots. Everybody hates chatbots, right? We're a chatbot now, and so but their reputation was earned, right? They were largely bad, and the main thing people engaged with on a chatbot was the X button to close it. I mean, that was the main way people were using them because they weren't providing good answers even when somebody was trying to. And that's really just because of the technology, for the vast majority of chatbots' existence has been logic trees, if then statements. I think somebody's going to ask one of these 10 questions. And if they ask these questions, provide them these answers or reference these pieces of content. And then anytime you update your site, you run the risk of that chatbot getting out of date and now having old content. You're having to remember a bunch of things. You're trying to predict the future, read their minds. It's impossible. And the
Yeah,
experience overall ends up being a ton of work for you, a bad overall experience for your customer. And so nobody ended up wanting to have them on their site for obvious reasons. But of course, the rise of LLMs, of sort of generative AI and answering questions, has really changed a few things. It's changed what the chatbots can do. And so we basically play within a small playground of stuff that you tell us we can answer based on and not everything else. And
mhm,
so it's just leveraging your content to answer it. But it's also changed buyer expectations. I mean, it's easy to think, I don't care too much about this stuff. My customers don't care about this stuff. But they're getting used to it whether or not they're intending to or not. They're getting used to it when they ask a question to Google and it gets an AI summary. They're getting used to it
sure,
when they ask Siri a question on their phone, and they get a question and answer style of engagement rather than a former like the old search style where you search for something and then you click and then you find the answer for yourself. We're really becoming accustomed, just as people, to this
just
question
a
and answer
conversation.
style. Yeah, the conversational modality or whatever we're calling it. And so when your customers now are doing their research. There's some stats on this. I have a presentation I can reference, share maybe with your audience later. A huge portion of your buyers, I think it's over 60%, is what the stats that I was seeing were, are starting their search with a chatbot in some capacity by having a conversation with an LLM, and that's only getting more and more. And it again, this is industry specific. Something like B2B software is going to be a much higher number, but it's a lot bigger than you might think. And so whether or not you appear there is important but that's not really our world. We're not in that trying to get you to appear in the LLMs. What matters is that your site is structured for it, that you have the answers that they're looking for, and that your buyers are getting used to that format. And so when you come to a site that has, let's say 20 different service categories and 100 different solutions within each of those, it's not an uncommon one. A lot of SKUs or a lot of different, applicabilities, materials, however you want to frame it. And you have to find that for yourself. It can be a little bit, it's not just hard, it's frustrating, and it might cause you to bounce because you could just go back to Google or go back to ChatGPT and search for it there and not have to navigate a site that has 2,000 pages. It's actually
Yeah.
a lot easier to ask a question than it is to click around and find something.
That makes perfect sense. AI is everywhere right now, and it's going to be all over IMTS. But here's the real question. How do you turn buzzwords into actual manufacturing outcome? That's exactly what the IMTS Industrial AI Conference is built for. On Wednesday, September 16th, head to the South Building at IMTS for a one-day practitioner-focused program on reality-based AI for the factory floor. This isn't vague futurism or jargon soup. It's about understanding where AI really fits in manufacturing, from predictive maintenance and quality to edge versus cloud, small models, LLMs, and how to move from problem to purpose to process. If you're trying to figure out what AI can do inside your shop, this is the room you want to be in. Learn more at the link in the show notes or head over to imts.com for more info. I want to go back to something you said earlier where you were talking about just kind of everybody being spread too thin, kind of under resourced. And I mean, I think that's a trend all across this industry, right? No secret, we have a big labor gap, and it's not just on the shop floor, right? It's in sales and it's in marketing, and it's some of the areas you're touching on. Some of the questions I saw come across Hill, to me, they were a lot of the types of questions that maybe used to get submitted on a form
Mhm.
to our info at Hill Manufacturing, right? That just says, do you guys, like I used the example earlier, can you turn 22 inches round by 5 feet long, right? That process would require somebody checking that email address daily or whatever, then responding, and then, this back and forth. Are you hearing from your customers? I mean, is it helping them in those early conversations and speeding up that process?
That's one of the biggest things it does, honestly. And so when we talk about value that you're adding from something like this, there's a lot of various things you could claim. Qualifying users, getting those data analytics and insights and things. We call them like successful sessions is a big thing. Just giving people the thing that they're looking for on the site. But the most tangible and what a lot of our customers use to justify this expense internally within the business is labor savings. Because there is so much that you're currently doing that's relying on individual people to answer things that are not necessarily the best use of their time. Whether it's the salespeople disqualifying folks that otherwise would obviously not be a good fit, or SMEs using time to answer really simple questions that are answered on the website. And just a little brief tangent, we so often see within customer questions, they go to a landing page, and the landing page, says, here are the 18 types of polymers that we're working with. It's literally that's the whole landing page, and the first question they ask to the chatbot is, "What kind of polymers do you work with?" Uh, that's just so often. And then if in the previous world where they're filling out a form, they're asking that question to your SME or maybe the owner of the shop, depending on who's
Yeah.
manning that email address. It's like, is this really how you want to be spending your time? This is very easily accessible information. You don't want to leave all of the most technical, in-depth, high quality sales conversations to AI. Those are where you want your SMEs and your business owners and your sales folks focusing. But most of the questions that you're getting, most of the stuff that people are interested about is way before that. And that low hanging fruit that the AI can take off the plate of sales, support, marketing, ownership, SMEs, whoever it is that your website is ending up funneling people to, having the AI take that off their plate allows them to focus more on the stuff that actually is driving value for the business.
I find that's a conversation we're having a lot lately with the day and age of AI is that instant gratification, right? If you don't get somebody's attention right away, answer their question right now, you're going to lose that lead, right? So I feel like Navu's kind of helping to solve that problem on the instant gratification side now.
I wasn't an early AI adopter. I was not one of those people that's like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. this is the business that I work in, and we have figured out where it's really applicable and things, and I start to use it myself. I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty nice." And I'm gonna be honest, I now go to a website that doesn't have some version of conversation. I'm like, "What do I do? Like,
Yep.
how do I find the thing that am I supposed to click this super menu and pick the category and then go to the pillar page and find the thing and then click on that and then search through the 20 pages here to, you know, that's a lot. I know it's easy to blame like instant gratification as a bad thing, but to a degree, what's your website for if not trying to fulfill the needs of the person on it? And if you're making it hard for them, and yeah, you could call it instant gratification, they should be. Back in my day, I had to click all the links on the website uphill both ways. That's that's not the day we're in right now. Again, the fallback is not, I am on this website and I want to know this thing, but I'm having trouble finding this thing, but I can't find it if I don't stay on this website. The fallback is I'm just gonna go back to Google or ChatGPT and ask the question there and just leave the website. I don't need the website anymore.
Right.
And your website matters to them a lot less than it used to. You're not the gatekeeper of one source of truth that they can't get elsewhere. So when you're introducing friction, you're just basically driving them away. And now you're driving them to an area, a domain where they can get answers that you don't control.
Right.
And your website is answers you do control. And so it's really important to give them the answers when they're on the website in the way that you would want them to be, because otherwise you're basically ceding the conversation to somebody else.
The the instant gratification, like you said, it is often used in a negative light, but the reality is that's the market we live in, right? So, like sometime in the last few weeks, I read a study. I can't remember who it was from. It was in the manufacturing space. Per this study, the number one reason of winning a job, right, winning a new job or not winning a new job, has to do with response time of a quote,
Yep.
right? So the people that are winning are responding faster, and the people that are losing are responding the slowest, right? And because it's not in the market we're in right now, it's not as much about price and lead time as it is, I just got to get this ordered and move on, right? Because of the entire supply chain mess, I would say we've been in for several years.
But I think
Um,
there's
they just want a quick answer, and this is part of getting a quick answer.
but I think there's another component to it too, though, is we're measuring time to lead time based on the very end bit. It's like the tip of the iceberg, right? It's the part that you can see, which is when they've come in and requested a quote. But there's all the other stuff that happens before they request that quote. And that used to be stuff that you could generally see on your own website. You knew how they went through that process. They either talked to somebody or they self-educated on the site in some capacity. But now a lot of that is happening outside of your line of sight entirely. And so when we talk about control the things that you can control, there are a lot fewer things in the buyer journey that you control now. I think there's just a lot fewer things. And that can be a little daunting. It can seem a little scary, but it can also be an opportunity because it's less things for you to worry about. It's less things for you to be trying to control and say, okay, so if time to quote from when they've submitted is the thing that I need to be focusing on, well, how can I optimize for that? How can I make sure that the people who are requesting quotes are qualified in advance, that they've done a little bit of the diligence or the pre-screening in advance, that the folks who are providing the quote and doing the scoping out of the project in the first place, that they're even free to get a quick response on this because they're not answering 1,000 other questions. So it allows you to focus on a much narrower set of responsibilities for something like the website or your marketing, or you are now controlling a lot less of the buyer journey.
Well, and I just thought of this while you were saying that, but we talk a lot on making chips also about a lot of your more successful shops have really niched down to we do this, right? Like we specialize in these materials or this industry, whatever it is. And it'd be so much easier to just weed those people out right out of the gate via a tool like this than get all the leads coming in and you're trying to niche down, telling everybody no. Be easier just to say, oh, we don't serve that industry.
Yep. And then you don't have them now reach out to somebody who has limited time to tell them that very simple fact that we don't serve this industry. I do want to tell, this is just a little bit of an example, but it can be so easy to explain this all in concept, and it doesn't really get rooted in these real journeys. And the real user journeys and the questions that you see are so cool. It's so cool to see the process of what people, will ask and what they need before are willing to talk to sales. And so, an example that I brought up around stormwater filtration, I mentioned that's from an example I use frequently. So forgive me if it's a little rehearsed. But one of our customers, Contech Engineered Solutions, they sell bridges and pipes and tunnels and stormwater filtration and many things, big industrial projects. The kind of thing again that require lots and lots of user education, and their website is filled with rich information, tons of material. But people have to find it and they have to get to it. And so they run CPC campaigns, as one does, and they pay a lot of money for clicks for somebody who might be about to engage in a multi-million-dollar project. And so there was a click coming in on a stormwater filtration campaign, a CPC campaign, probably. I don't know how much they paid, but not cheap for that click. And the first question that person asked on the stormwater page was, what kind of stormwater filtration solutions do you have? Because they didn't want to read the page. They just wanted to ask the guide. And so it answers. And they say, okay, of those three, which one is most likely a fit for my use case? And it answered that. And they kept digging further and further into this sort of discovery process of what are the capabilities here. And the ninth question, it's true, this was the ninth question in this user journey, was how many cubic feet per second can the jellyfish stormwater filtration system process? Right? That is an SME question. That is a kind of question that exists. The answer is very discrete. There is a correct answer to this question. It exists somewhere in the documentation on the website. It would be nearly impossible for that person to find that information self-serving on the website on their own. It would be very difficult for a salesperson to answer that one contemporaneously in a conversation unless they had that information pulled up in advance. They might be querying an SME. This might be a longer process and taking multiple stakeholders' time. Instead, it just pulls it from page 193 of some PDF somewhere and answers the question correctly on how many cubic feet it could handle. And then there was a 10th question, and the 10th question was, how can I talk to sales? Right? I mean, that is the user journey that now delivers a qualified lead to sales without having to talk to anybody along the way. And the key is Contech doesn't have some massive marketing team that can be doing a huge integration here. They're not they're a great team, really smart folks, but they don't have the bandwidth to be doing some extremely complex project. When you're using a tool like ours, and again, we're not the only show in town. There's a lot of different ways to add you AI and search versus faceted search versus chat. A lot of things you should be considering. But when you're using a tool like this, you're basically allowing those questions to be answered by the work that you've already done. The stuff that is already on the website can now be used rather than sort of languishing as a resource for your SMEs to find when they need the right answer deep into a conversation later. So it's really easy and it doesn't replace folks. It frees them up and moves them along without wasting folks' time.
That makes me wanna ask Brooke a question.
Okay.
Brooke, you're our whatever gen you are,
Gen Z,
whatever
yes.
Gen Z. You're a resident Gen Z, and,
Mhm.
I know from my own kids being in your generation and then just reading, I mean, there's definitely a shift in the way people want to interact with information and so forth. So,
Yeah.
for example, I know both of my kids would rather text than make a phone call, right?
Mhm.
Like, do you hear that and go, "Oh my god, I would much rather do that than, like, hop on the phone with an SME and ask those same 10 questions?"
Yeah. I am the type of person, like, this whole time I've been thinking of, like, a while back when AI powered, like, chatbots first came out, and the
Yeah.
first one that comes to mind is Chipotle.
Okay.
And people were using, this story, people are using the Chipotle chatbot to, like, do their homework and to, like, ask all these really, really obscure questions, and because they hadn't niched down and kind of worked with someone like you
I
guys.
didn't know this.
You didn't hear about this? Oh,
No.
wow. Yeah, because they hadn't worked with somebody like you guys, it was just drawing anything from the internet and answering everything, right? And I think
Wow.
about that. I've been thinking about that the whole time. I find it hilarious. But, like, yeah, I would way rather go on a website and, like, even our own website. I use that chatbot sometimes when I'm looking
Sure.
for a specific episode, when I'm talking to people and they're like, "Oh, I'm looking for this kind of episode." I'll go to the chatbot and I get a quick answer and it's right every time, you know?
I've used it quite a bit. I usually ask it who the best host is, and it's
You know,
still
we
Did it
put
say
that
me?
It's probably going to now. I mean, I can't train it to
We put
say
that
me.
custom rule in there, Mike, that said when somebody asks who the best host, we put it at your request where you said,
I
"Please
know, but
say
I
my
don't think
who's
it's
the best."
working or something.
Oh, okay,
You must have
interesting.
commented it out.
Mm,
Must have.
So, like, this interaction, if you were looking for a machine shop, for example, Brooke, like,
mhm.
you'd prefer to have this interaction over maybe calling around the 10 of them and asking their capabilities.
Yeah, I would way rather be able to access that information kind of at my own leisure. I feel like a lot of people now feel like when they call a shop, when they call anything, that they're gonna get hard sold right away,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I wanna be able to investigate and find all of the information that I want before I ever talk to somebody in sales or in marketing or
And
whatever it
narrow it
might
down to
be.
2 of them that you'll talk to or something like
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
I think that's something that I mean, I can speak for my generation since we're talking about generations. I mean, I think I can speak for my generation and probably older that and much in the way that we used to just put on our website what we think people should care about. It's like, "Well, just call us, we'll tell you," right? And,
Mhm,
one of the things, even like with our existing customers, like I'm trying to think of how do we give them tools to check on their order status or whatever, right? So used to they would call and or email, and they still do because we don't have another tool for them. A lot of my buyers are like of my generation, right? So they do email me or they, whatever. But we are starting to see like the buyers get younger and younger, right? And I think this is just another tool of like companies need to think about like your customer demographic is changing. And there's a group of them out there, they would prefer this. Some would prefer to pick up the phone and call,
mhm.
right? Yeah, I mean, it's just another tool to give any of your potential buyers a door into your company, regardless of how they want to come in.
So one thing I think is pretty cool though is we work with just a lot of industrial companies that have this very specific mindset, and I think it's not incorrect. But it's not just, your website. Think about who's using your website and all the content that you have. It's not just the end users, it's also your employees.
Sure.
Brooke and Mike, you've just both been individually saying you use the chat on the site to find things sometimes. And that's true of the sales folks too. And so what's really cool, and we hear this all the time, is that often some of the power users of the chat end up being the folks on that call, the folks who are in the middle of a sales call who get a technical question that they would otherwise have to ask around for that they don't know the answer offhand. And they're able to just be asking the chat while they're on the call to get high quality answers based on the content that already exists. So it's leveraging all of that stuff that you have that you've already put in the work for, not just for people to ask the questions themselves, but for your team to educate themselves when they're answering emails or when they're on the phone, or even if they're just training up new hires. It's a way to really make sure that you're getting the right answer in all the situations that you might be looking for.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I hadn't even thought about that.
I didn't either, I was gonna say that too.
It just comes up. There's so many of these little applications that come up when it's like, what if I could just ask my website any question that I wanted? Not just my website, all of my PDFs, my transcripts. I know that the Making Chips folks have uploaded all the transcripts into the chatbot. So those don't exist sort of as it is in the sitemap on the website, but they've been uploaded manually into it on the back end so that now you can search, hey, somebody said this thing. I think it was an episode in August and it was about this topic, fasteners, it doesn't matter. Can you
Right.
can you find what that was? Now it's able to search for that information as well. So all of this stuff that you have that exists that is not currently being used and not currently as accessible, when it becomes accessible, it opens up a bunch of doors you wouldn't have thought of.
Hey, everybody. Guess what Kennametal is doing at IMTS 2026? It's called the Next Level Shop, an exclusive booth experience packed with live machining demos, game changing product announcements, and industry experts ready to talk tools and shop floor challenges. And here's the headline: Motorsports legend Carrie Hart is teaming up with a custom fabrication crew to machine motorcycle components for an Indian sport chief live on the show floor. And guess what? One lucky visitor gets to take that bike home. You'll also find automotive manufacturers and Kennametal customers showcasing the tooling that keeps their operations running. Plus, digital machining demos with partners like Autodesk, Fusion, Toolpath, and ModuleWorks. It all kicks off on Monday, September 14th, with a major announcement from Kennametal's president of metal cutting. So don't be late. Are you ready to take your shop to the next level? Find Kennametal at booth 431 800. It's in the West Building on level 3. We'll see you there.
Okay, so a shop listening, an owner listening right now wants to adopt your platform on their website. How do they do it?
Yeah, so I mean, getting started is really easy. It's something we pride ourselves on as being really easy to use and to get started. But I think the first and most important thing is you got to figure out that we're the right one for you. There are a lot of ways to be sort of embracing the AI era and using it on your site. There's a lot of solutions. You might be more interested in search. You might be more interested in a platform that has voice chat capabilities, or maybe is more focused on sending follow-up emails automatically or de-anonymizing people. This is just going to be dependent on what you're looking for. But if you're looking for something that is essentially turnkey, extremely easy to use, focused on industrial and manufacturing, has product catalog capabilities, will integrate with your PIM or your ERP. We really do focus on this space. And so if you're interested in that, the best, easiest way is to just create a demo by going to Navu, their homepage or website, navu.co, navu.co/making chips. And if you go to navu.co/making chips, you can actually just right on that page, enter your domain, and we'll build out a custom demo for you that you can answer, that will answer questions within about 30 seconds. So we index your site. You can start asking questions, trying to stump the machine. It's really fun. It's actually just, even if you don't
It
want
is
to
fun.
use us, see if you can stump it. And then we'll send you a configured demo where we basically say, here's what the chatbot would look like on your website. And if you want to get started, it's a 30-day free trial. And you just literally add the one line of code and hit publish. And then pricing, there's no variable pricing. There's no tokens. We're not limiting you based on seats. We try to keep that really, really simple too. It's a flat fee, same every month, based on the number of pages in your index and your average monthly traffic, which are the two ways that we incur costs. So we want to be easy to use for your users. We want to be easy to maintain for you, and we really want to be easy for you to try.
Yeah, I'll just add, having done it for the Making Chip site and the Hill Manufacturing site, easy is the key word there. I mean, literally, they create, you put in that domain, it lets you start kind of testing around with it. There's some funny answers right out of the gate, just like any AI, anytime you ask AI a question. And, once we worked with you guys to train it on a few things,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it probably understood us better than most of us understand us.
Well, and I think that's important too, is it's not going to be, we do so much work to make it work right out of the box, but it's not going to be perfectly exactly as you like it. Nothing, none of these are going to be perfectly exactly as you like it
No.
until you put some other work into it. And so easy isn't the same thing as, no work, set it and forget it. You're going to be wanting to add your customizations, things like if somebody asks to speak to sales, direct them to this rep directory, right? So that they can find the right person for them. Or even just ask them what their zip code is so that we can get them in touch with the right salesperson. Or maybe if they ask about pricing, you really want control over the way that answers. And so you say, when somebody asks about pricing, give them this very specific answer around, we don't list that pricing, but please get in touch with us here, however you want it to be. And so all of those customizations, they're not required to make it work, but they are the kind of way to make it your own, to make it fit your company's needs, and represent your business the way that you want it to.
Yeah, and anybody that's spent any time with any of the AI agents should understand that by now, right? It doesn't know anything until you train it on your voice or the facts of the problem you're trying to solve or whatever that case might be.
The thing is, we do all that training and voice work up front. Now that's, I
Right.
think, one of the cool things is because we're only training on the stuff that you've already written, that's basically all the stuff that you're talking about, that you're populating your project within the LLM. That's what we've already populated.
Right.
And so I think that is pretty cool that it will generally answer. You don't have to tell it what kind of voice to use. It's just going to use
Right.
your voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, John, you gave the website link there for people to track you down, but if they want to just talk to you directly, what's some of the best ways to reach out to you?
I'll commit the cardinal sin and accept the spam. My email address is John, John, at navu.co, navu.co. I'm always happy to chat with folks. I run our marketing, so I might not be the person you're trying to talk to, but I'm always happy to chat. We'll also be at a bunch of industrial manufacturing events. I believe We will be seeing you folks at IMTS. We will be at IMTS in Chicago this September. So if you come to the AI arena there, you can chat with us in person. There
Nice.
should We'll also be at a few other events in the fall. You can find some of that information on our website. But we like to be at those kind of things. And you can catch us in person there. And obviously just come to the website, navu.co/making chips, and ask a bunch of questions to the sidebar and see what we say.
Yeah, and if you wanna if you wanna see it live and in action, go to the Making Chips website and just ask it about maybe something you sort of remember hearing on a show and or a guest or something and ask it about that topic or ask it about that guest, and I think you'll be pretty impressed.
It's pretty cool. Can I just, like, last little thing?
Yeah.
I just This is for me, right? This is what's so cool about it to me as a marketing person who's I haven't been in AI chat my whole career, obviously. I
Right.
just I get so excited about it because it's so much of the stuff that I'd always wanted to know about the websites, or, like, just all of this content I created that felt like it just went into this vacuum and
Yeah.
never got used again, and so many of these pain points, I'm like, this technology, not just us, but us too, it's just it can be such a revelation. It takes so much work off of my plate, and it's a lot less pressure when I'm making changes to the website or when I'm creating new content or removing old content. It's so much less pressure knowing that I'm not in charge of how does this get in front of people anymore? How does this get found on Google anymore? Now I know that when I'm creating it, it's all going to be leveraged, and this content will find the person that it's right for. So it allows me to focus on my expertise and see what the things that I should be focusing on and applying that expertise to without worrying about all of the nonsense of delivery and applicability and all that stuff. So it
Yeah.
frees me up. I just get excited, honestly.
Well, it's cool technology. It's easy to get excited over. All right, Brooke, I'm putting you in the hot seat.
All right.
It's your first Making Chips. How do we close it out?
If you're not making chips,
You're not making money.
bam.
Bam.
If you're not making chips, you're not making any money. If you're not making chips, you're not making any money.
If you're not making chips, you're not making money. Bam! If you're not making chips, you're not making money. Making money. Bam! Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not making chips, you're not money. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're not making chips, you're not
Making money, money, money.